Hi, welcome back to the Severed Floor. I trust your trip down here was without event. Let's get into episode 3 of this season. Who is alive? Alright, so welcome back to the recap slash review. The first scene that we've got is Mrs. Selvig in her car on this random highway in what looks like the middle of nowhere. Apparently, when she drove off at the end of the previous episode, she ended up here and is living out of her car, I guess. I'm not really sure what's going on, but on from that, we go into Mark, and he's heading into work, but it looks like he's timing how long it takes him to get to the severed floor. So that's pretty obvious that that's something that he's going to be trying to do this episode. And then really quick, because I know it's fast, but I noticed during the intro that the elevator is switching between Helly and Miss Casey, which is kind of interesting. I think we do find more about the elevator in this episode though, so let's keep going. And then next we're back in the office with Mark and the rest of the team. He's printing out flyers, missing flyers for Miss Casey, and it's kind of interesting because it's missing flyers, but they're not putting them up. They're just showing them to other departments. So that seems to be their plan, I guess, is to try to find where she went, even though it seems like it was pretty obvious that she was let go, so she wouldn't be anywhere. Also, Dylan stays at his desk, and he seems to be the only person actually doing work on the severed floor. As they're split up to pass out or show the flyers of the missing, not missing Miss Casey, there's this really awkward scene between Mark and Helly in the hallway, and she's acting like she's almost attracted to him, but then I think it was previous episode, 2 episodes ago, something, she was joking about being mushy with him or something about not, like there's nothing there, but her outie was super interested in them kissing. So there is a theory that her outie is faking to be her innie. Milchek finds the infamous blue balloons that he gave to Mark in the hallway, and they're like half deflated. And so he heads back to his office frustrated, and he is immediately met by Natalie and the board. She gives him a present gift. It turns out to be a bunch of pictures of Kier that have his face kind of on them. So it's like him with blue eyes and stuff. It's really awkward. And then she seems very pained. And then she says that she got a similar gift from the board too. So I assume she has a collection of photos with her face as Kier on them. And then we go back to Mrs. Selvig, and she is about to leave to Salt Flats. She looks at the oxygen tube on the passenger seat, kind of like sighs to herself, and then she turns around and heads back towards Lumen and Mark and all of them. Whoever this person was, I guess, changed her mind to leave. Next up, we have Mark and Helly that find the goat room, which is where they were going with missing Mrs. Casey flyer, and there's a hallway thing for the goats, but the way that the scene was filmed, I was getting like the impression that it was an Alice in Wonderland, like you have to crawl and go in the rabbit hole that is the Lumen severed floor. Once they get in the goat room, they meet the head, I guess, of the department, and she calls it Mammalians Nurturable Department, so MND. I'm just going to call it the MND. They're kind of pressing her for information about Miss Casey, like, do you know her and everything, because this is still the severed floor. It's just a different department of it. Immediately after that, we're switched back to Dylan being led by Miss Wong down the hallway to what he thinks was the security room. And when he opens it up, it turns out it's the family visitation Audi center, and his Audi wife is in there. They start talking, and then they get interrupted by Miss Wong that says, hey, don't share any confidential information. But the whole scene is very cringe just because she doesn't actually know what his innie self is like, and he doesn't know anything about his outie self. And he asks her, like, what am I like outside? And it kind of ends with her not saying that he's a loser, but she's kind of like, that's how you are with jobs. So I don't really know what the point of it is, like what the point of the room is, other than to make the Audi families feel better, I guess. Irving visits the optics center and shows a lady there that was obviously working with Bert and everything like that. The drawing, he's showing her drawings that he did of Bert for every day that he hadn't seen him. She gets to the end of the book and she sees one of his drawings that he did from memory of the overtime contingency, and it's the red door or the elevator with the red down arrow. And she says, how do you know about the exports room, or how do you know about the exports floor level? He starts asking her like, oh, is that what this is and everything. And so she goes and explains to him that it used to be somewhere where they would actually take their stuff that they're manufacturing and export it, but now they have a guy that comes and takes it. Mark and Helly convince the goat people that they're no threat and to let them keep searching for Miss Casey. The lady says, we won't get in your way if you want to continue searching, but we don't want to be too much a part of it, I guess. And then they're kind of held there until they show the department their bellies, because they think that MDR has pouches, which is going back to like the different departments were kind of pinned against each other. And I guess that's carries throughout the entire floor, including MND department, thinking that MDR has pouches that they carry their kangaroo young in or something like that. Super quick, when they were pulling away from the scene, I just thought it was awesome, the amount of like green and cinematography. This entire episode is just gorgeously filmed. Also interesting, their badges are kind of a lighter green, and then it seems like Optics and Design has a darker green badge, and then MDR has the blue badges, with the supervisors having a darker blue badge, or the floor leads having a darker blue badge. I kind of waiting for a red badge to show up at this point. We then cut to Rick discussing with Natalie about his book. Her and him explain that the innies have been inspired by his book, and Lumen wants to do an innie specific version, but with differed language, because innies respond differently to different ways of talking or something like that. After that, we go over to Mark and his sister that are working on a project to burn Who is Alive, which is the episode title, into his retina so he remembers it with the afterburn, afterglow kind of thing that you get on your eyes as he's going down the elevator, which explains the entire reason why we open the episode with him timing how long it takes to go down the elevator. Mrs. Selvig meets Helly in the Lumen parking lot and discusses the terms of her coming back, and Helly lets her know kind of, you are way overestimating who you think you are, but come on, let's go inside and let's get reset. And the way she says it, it almost seems like there's a second meaning to that word. Mrs. Selvig gets really scared off. It's almost acting like Helly's trying to off her, half runs back to her car and drives off from there. Mark is interrupted from his eyeball frying by the scientist lady who was previously at Lumen, and she was the one that killed the security guy in the previous season. He's talking to her in his car, and he asks her kind of straight out, is my wife still alive? And she says, last time I saw her, she was. So that's a huge thing of her actually admitting that his wife's alive. But she asks him if he wants to get reintegrated, and because he's realizing that his wife might actually be alive and that she could be down there, he agrees to it. Then they have this cool scene of him getting reintegrated. She's asking him questions while adjusting his brainwaves, I guess. The salt and frequency thing they have going on there is an actual thing that you can do if you get sound waves and do this kind of thing. If I remember, I'll link the video down below. There's a cool music video that they did with that. He eventually does sync up his brainwaves from the innie and outie and gets reintegrated. So after that, and the reintegration apparently works, he wakes up in the interview intake innie room that is all the way at the beginning of the first season, being interviewed, or he's hearing Petey come over the speaker. So this is like his first day, and I don't know if it reset him all the way back to the beginning of his severed floor experience, but that is a crazy cliffhanger to leave it on, and I'm really excited to see what's happening for episode 4. Thank you again for joining me. If you like the video, leave a like. If you want to comment your theories, ideas, myths, anything like that below, go ahead. Until next time, I'll see you. Stay severed.